Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Wednesday night on Field Gemology Talks. We have a very special guest today, but before I get into that too much, I just want to say welcome to everybody and thank you once again for joining us in our journey around the world. So this is what, 6, 12, 17, the 17th week, which is incredible. And we have, of course, another very interesting journey. This time we're not leaving too far from home because we're going to stay here in Bangkok with Karim. And we're going to hear a lot of good stories about the olden days, the modern days, the future, and maybe everything in between. So, Vincent, if you're ready, come on in and we can get going. Hello.
Hello, Justin, and hello, everybody.
Welcome
Yeah,
to week
one
17.
more. Yeah,
Yeah.
week 17. That will be an interesting one. 17 weeks, yeah, that's quite a lot. And since beginning of May, May number 4 or 5, now we are middle August.
Yeah. So
May,
it
June,
just
July,
keeps on
August,
going.
3 months, a bit more than 3 months. Yeah, kind of three unusual months. These are kind of unusual time. Well, at least we are lucky here in Bangkok because things are kind of okay. Life is a little bit like a kind of normal because still there is no coronavirus here, and the whole country is a kind of small bubble around the planet. But well, nobody comes in, and everybody who leaves cannot come back.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like difficult.
I saw an article yesterday that I don't know if this is official yet, but they said no tourists until at least February. So they're seriously going to keep that bubble going, which good for us in one way, bad for us in another way as the gem trade as a whole. But for
Yeah.
safety reasons, it feels very safe. But yeah, it's been quite a journey so far, and we haven't announced this yet, but I guess we'll say it at the end. But next week is going to be the last week, so we've got this big black box in front of us, and we know it's going to be there, but we'll save that announcement for the end. But we have something very interesting planned for next week. But I don't want to take the shine away from Kareem because we're going to have a very very fun night tonight. So Vincent, tell us a little bit about you. You've known Kareem for quite a bit of time, so tell us a little bit about how you guys how did you guys first meet?
Well, yeah, indeed. I know Karim for about 15 years. I think I met Karim for the first time when I was just at my beginning as a lab director at AIGS. Then I was, trying to search for customers in order to promote our lab service. And at this time, actually, there was some kind of turmoil in the trade in Bangkok because some companies, the wash companies in Europe, especially in Switzerland, and some companies in France, also in Paris, started to have some problem with rubies or sapphires that were treated. So they wanted, many people wanted us to check some parcel of a small calibrated stone in order to see if there was any kind of residue that were reaching the surface and things like that. Because in France at this time, they just passed a law that in France, if there was any stone that had a difference of luster at the surface, that stone had to be declared treated. If there was no difference of luster at the surface, the treatment was seen as traditional, and then you don't have to declare the stone as treated. So all the company wanted to check if there was any kind of difference of luster at the surface, if there was any kind of residue and things like that. So suddenly we had a lot of company willing to submit this stone in order to do quality control before to send that to the customer in Europe, because if not, the stone will be rejected. So
Mm.
and this is how I met Karim, because at this time he was doing some calibrated cut. And then I found out that number one, Karim was French. So there was not so many French gem dealer in Bangkok. And he was actually easy to contact with, easy to discuss with, very friendly, and very knowledgeable. Because in 2005, I was just 5 years experience, in gemology, but Karim had maybe 25 years already experience. He had more than 20 years experience. So for me, as a young gemologist, to be able to have some insight, from an experienced trader who knew well the place on the ins and out, that was very interesting. So I learned a lot from discussion with Karim, and and then when I came back, I stay. I work at the AGS for as a lab director for 2 years, and I moved to Switzerland. Then I came back at working at GA, and I kept a connection with Karim, and we go for lunch, and because I enjoy speaking with him, and he has all the time some interesting stories and about what is going on when there is new material. He invite me to see, and we discuss about stone, and we have a very interesting discussion. Me as a gemologist, as a lab gemologist, and him more as a trader, and then as also a burner, because he had a lot of experience about treatment from the 80s and 90s, and I learned a lot about macing discussing with Karim.
Yeah.
So we have an interesting collaboration. And several times, I went to see him. I had some project. I wanted to do some experiment about heat treatment, and I went to see Karim and say, "Can we do something there?" "Oh yeah, you come to Canterbury. I show you the furnace, and we have some fun, and we heat the stone, and we go to eat sometime. And there is a new good restaurant, in there. So we we have some good food, and we'll make some experiment, and we have a fun weekend." Yeah. So this is what we do. Sometimes we have fun,
Yeah.
and we have good food in a beautiful Canterbury, and we learn something. Every time we learn something when we do some experiment together. And then now, Karim is working with Greenland Ruby. He's the burner who is handling all the heat treatment for rubies from Greenland, and I'm working with Greenland rubies since 2017. So I'm advising them, and one of the advice was, I think the stone should be heated because they had some fracture due to, these rubies are super old, and there was some fracture, there was some milkiness, and I say, well, with heat treatment you will be able to have a better pollution, to make a cabochon, beads, and things like that. So yeah, currently Karim is handling the stone, and regularly we work together on that. It's
Very
interesting.
cool. So hopefully tonight, I know for me coming in as a cutter, for a lot of people, cutting is a big mystery. But for me, obviously I knew a bit about it. But for me, the big mystery still is treatments, heat treatments, and oils and whatevers. And so hopefully tonight, Kareem will be able to share a bit of his wisdom.
Actually, that are the two big things. For example, if you want to buy rough, you have to know about two things. You have to understand treatment, to understand what can be improved, what cannot be improved, and you have to understand cutting. So if you understand cutting and treatment, then basically you are qualified to look at rough. But of course, there are some rough, there are no treatment. So if there are no treatment, then you don't need to deal with treatment. You just have to deal with cutting.
Yeah.
But you see a rough stone, you have to think about what can this stone become after treatment,
Yeah.
and then what can you do about it with cutting, and in order to have a vision of the final product. And then you say, oh, this final product I can sell for maybe this type of price in this market. So when you know what you can what is the potential of
Yeah.
a piece of rough, then you can start to have an idea about its potential value. And I say potential because if the burner mess up or if the cutter mess up, your dreams about the potential value of the stone are going to zero.
Maybe then
Because
it's
your
time, right?
stone during the heat treatment or the cutting just broke.
Yeah.
You were thinking that you will get a 20 carat stone, and then actually you have 3 carat. Yeah.
Okay, so let's bring in Kareem and have him tell his own story. So Kareem, if you're ready, come on in and we'll get this party started. So welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Nice to
Karim.
meet you.
From
How's it-
Bangkok.
Yeah, how's Bangkok today?
Bangkok is not raining today, so it's raining season,
Yeah.
and this year has been quite strong rain.
Yeah.
So here we are. welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for everybody for participating at this seminar, and I hope we'll have fun and
Yeah,
nice discussion.
we haven't had a webinar where we haven't had fun yet, so I doubt that will be tonight either. So Karim, I guess our normal standard way to begin is just if you can just tell us a little bit about your story and how did you get into the trade, and maybe even how did you get into Bangkok, because obviously you're not from here. So
No, I
how did it all
get
start?
trade. I was a traveler, globetrotters, like we say. Okay, and I start in Jaipur in India by traveling and actually my first deal was to exchange lighters with the stones of those days in 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was in Jaipur and I read in a guide that you can exchange lighters. So I went in, and here the story start, the dream start, because our business, is dream. It's all about dream,
Yeah.
So I was like dreaming when you see bags of stone of even amethyst at that time, or citrine. I was like, wow, precious stone. And then the people who really hooked me actually was the emerald dealers, because I went back. I was buying, exchanging some amethyst, citrine. I think going to Nepal at that time, Kathmandu, and doing jewelry with it. Doing jewelry in amethyst, citrine, and this and that, and selling back to France, going back to France, selling them in the summer, going back to India. And one day I was with a friend of mine in the market, and Indian came to me and said, "Are you interested in emerald?" And for me, emerald was precious stone, and I didn't have money in my mind to buy any precious stone. And I said, no. And he said, and in that, there's thanks to them, they said, no, just have a tea. Just have a tea. Just come, have a piece. You don't have to buy. So we went there, and you see, that time they were cutting, by the way, with by hand, like that.
The rope.
Yes.
With a
All
bow.
the factories, and you see, and have a tea, of course. Have a tea. Wow, nice tea. And then they bring the emerald. Look, the emerald, I didn't have any idea of the price or whatever, So I was just saying, no. No. In my mind I was blocked. And I said, don't worry. How much you think is this per carat? I remember always I was like, I don't know, and okay. I said, okay, how much? And they told me, I remember, 35 rupees. I was, what? Precious stone for 35 rupees? They say, yes, you buy a little bit, I am sure you come back. So 35 rupees, I was having few hundred rupees. I bought 2-3 stone. And by thinking, wow, maybe it's synthetic for sure, something like that. And I went back to the hotel, and the hotel was like Swiss guys with reflector. For me, was the old guys, they know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So I said, listen, I bought those emerald in the market today. Can you check if it's there? So they were having reflectometer and this look. They say, yeah, it's real. Then I said, you, with all your experience, how much you think it worth? Then I remember they said 250 rupees. And that's the beginning of the dream. I did
you were
that
hooked.
day. And that day. That's the story of.
So then from there, how did you end up getting into Thailand?
I went to Thailand because of Siamese Ruby, top team Ruby, because as you know, India was very strong for emerald, for all semi-precious stones, but Sapphire and Ruby was Thailand. Everybody was coming to Thailand for Sapphire Ruby. So I figured out I have to come to Thailand. But before coming to Thailand, I went to Burma. From Burma, Nepal, Burma, Thailand,
A little bit like Richard Hughes. Sounds a little bit the same as Richard Hughes. You did the same track as from US to Europe, Europe to Middle East to India, India to Burma, Burma to Thailand.
Before that, I mean, before Nepal, India, Pakistan, you know,
Yeah.
and then I was going to Afghanistan. At that time, the Russian took
That
out
was
Afghanistan. We were completely blocked, you know.
you had the big hippie trail, you know, from Europe to
Yes,
Kathmandu and to
many
Australia.
people actually, the one famous trail is what the Magic Bus. The Magic Bus was going from Paris and going through all till Nepal, because when they were buying second-hand buses, Benz, and they were going all the travel Pakistan, I mean Turkey, all the thing, and finishing in Kathmandu and selling the Mercedes in Kathmandu. That was the
travel
Magic Bus.
at that
We have
time.
some BDs on Magic Bus.
I heard
So I
about
went
that.
yeah, so I came to Thailand for Ruby, and immediately I went to Chantaburi, and of course I was again completely lost, you know, but because I didn't have, I read some book before, but I didn't, you know, I was more curious than anything, but I was on the dream, you know, I was caught, you know, so I bought some Ruby, I bought some Sapphire, and you know, I lost money, I make money. You always lose money in the beginning, no?
But you
Don't
learn. Every time you lose, you learn. You learn something when you lose money.
you
Usually.
learn, you know, you have to lose to learn. Exactly. That's the beginning.
And I have a picture just to kind of show you or show this point of your life when you're in the early days.
Yeah. This is I was in my room, and you see the scale. That day we didn't have electronic scale or whatever. It was like this scale. I still have it, by the way. But the scale, I bought it in Jaipur, of course, in Gopalji Karasta. Is like the Chantaburi of, Jaipur.
So, this is like this is in the 80s?
Yeah, this is in the 80s.
This is when you're still getting your start right here. Okay. So then, okay, so that was then. Now, so many years later, you know, you're well known. I don't know if you're well known around the world, but you're definitely well known here in Bangkok as, you know, this guy who really knows the treatments, who has done cutting and also now involved with the IGT school. So how did this all happen? You know, obviously many people have a similar beginning as what you just said, you know, getting the dream and starting to buy and sell, but not very many people get the chance to learn how to burn stones. So I'm so curious as to how you stumbled into that.
As you know, the life is about meeting people, meeting interesting people, and people who you get hooked to them, Sam, because you learn a lot of things. Passion, you know. Passion is very important in our business, I think. It's part of it. Many people, unfortunately, in our business, they are businessmen. So they just sell stone, they buy and sell. But passion is another field, actually. Another field. As you are passionate for cutting, or Vincent passionate for all kind of stone. And that we are not, there is a big percentage in our trade, I think, you know. But
yeah, when you are passionate with something, and then you meet another people with the same passion, that create a connection. Then you can and you become friends, and you don't have to find
Reggie Rogers he was working with Kurt Nassau, you know, and he was a crazy guy. I mean, he was crazy, but you know, I was listening to him, and you know, and burning, heating, treatment.
So it was with Gary. So you made Gary Rogers, and you become his friend, and then
we're talking. He gave me some book to read and this and that, but I didn't start right away. You know, I didn't start right away. I mean, we start actually with Mr. Jeffrey Bergman, and he was having this gem source company, and he was doing diffusion sapphire. So we start to work together.
You are the one who started the diffusion sapphire, correct?
Yeah, Jeffrey is the one who started the diffusion sapphire. Yeah, he's the one who started, and then when you do diffusion sapphire, then I start my mind start to go and say, okay, let's do Ruby, let's try Ruby, let's try this, and then we did all kind of experience. That's why I meet the Duros, the famous Duros, you know. I meet, yes, the Duros brothers. I meet so many people actually, and
But
that's why I started.
You didn't succeed to make a diffusion with rubies. With rubies,
Let's say
rubies.
we didn't persevere, because it's a long process. As you know, ruby, because of the atom of the chromium, is quite difficult to penetrate inside. So we did it outside, and
Synthetic
yes,
overgrowth. Yes,
yes.
synthetic overgrowth.
And then with the doors, they did an overgrow of synthetic ruby, which you can see. There is an article on the GI magazine. You can have it. It's very interesting.
I remember very well, because when you showed me the stone, I was so interested, and then bring the stone to GI.
With the door, especially with the Duros was then.
It was
So then, when you were getting started, when you were just learning to do the burning, were you actually sort of studying with somebody else, or you just picked it up and heard a few things and did some experiments?
When we were having a Thai guy, which we were doing the blue diffusion also with us, and then in the meantime we start emerald treatment. Okay. Because as you know, we were having I was having a friends, which they were dealing in emeralds, and the problem, the Colombian they were taking airplane, I don't know how many hours from Bogota to Bangkok, with the pressure, high pressure, up and down, with the different escal, they have to change airplanes. The oil was going out of the, not everything, but some emerald was losing.
With a lower pressure in the plane. So
yes.
Oil was going out from the stone.
Yes. So they were in Bangkok, say, Karim, we lost, can you treat it? And I started doing treatment and with emerald, And first I was doing.
Make them look good again.
Yes. First I was doing, the funny story is that first I was doing just cedar oil, Somebody brought me a cedar oil. That's the story. Cedar oil bottle, normal bottle. Smelled very good and this. And then came the beginning of Opticon. Okay. Opticon was a big story about Opticon, because Opticon, you have to put a hardener in the end, so that you don't lose anymore the Opticon. I mean the resin, which is resin.
Resin become solid from a liquid. You put liquid inside, then you turn that into solid.
Yes. The only problem, sometimes the resin after a long period turned to yellowish. That was the problem. So I of course I think immediately, let's try some experience. And Indian have Joban. In India, Joban they have it for old stone, which is colored. So I tried to color the Opticon to avoid the yellowish. So I try all kind of experience. And everybody, was why, But in the same time, I find out that the famous bottle of cedar oil, I said, I want to buy cedar oil myself. So I buy. Somebody give me the address where everybody was doing. This bottle was writing Merck's, the company, chemical company Merck's, and actually it was synthetic cedar oil. So most of the people, of course, in Colombia, in some place, in Germany, whether they were still having the real cedar oil. But here in Asia, there is no cedar. Yeah. So everybody was using the cedar oil and telling us, Opticon is not good, it's synthetic and this and that. So that was a big controversy, as I said.
When was that? In the 1990s or
80s? 91, maybe 91, something like that.
Okay, so you
were a lot in emerald. You were a lot in emerald in the beginning of the 1980s.
Yes, emerald. Yeah, we did emerald, but in the same time I'm doing the of course the Sapphire diffusion with Jeff, and we were doing the everything, trying rubies, trying all kind of. So and then that's the first part, and then I start. Then I was I was in the same time I was gem dealer. That's the thing.
Yeah. So when you started playing around with the heat treatment, that's kind of caught you on a new level of passion? Like you kind of got hooked onto this?
Yeah. So I'm here for a long time now. So I'm well introduced and I'm well connected with all the Thai people. And actually, some of my best friend and partners, I say, are Thais, and one of them is one of the is actually the last 5-6 years is the best heat treater for rubies. So I have the chance to work with him. He teach me, and we start to burn together. Heat treater. I brought my idea because, as you know, there is the burners which are Thai, and the innovator, they're alone actually, with the book, and you have the lab. So I am the one who opened them the door of the lab by telling them, okay, here what the lab looking with that testosterone,
Okay.
So
So you've kind of had a very interesting role in all of this, and obviously an interesting journey, because you've maybe done something that almost no other foreigners have done. I mean, I don't really know. I know a couple of other people around that are not Thai that do burning, but it's pretty rare, right? Like, you're one of just a very few people here that do this.
yeah, I mean, I'm here. The chance that I'm here for a long time, and I meet the right people, and you get passionate about it, and it's just everybody, that's normal, nothing special.
Yeah.
It's just if you want, you do it.
Okay. So I'm curious.
Some people say it's not rocket science, but it needs a lot of practice.
Okay, if you want the heat treatment, you have to be ready to lose money. You
have to be a gambler. You have to be able to have the gambling mood to be able to try.
And then you have to be you don't have to be on hurry, because if you hurry, you burn the stone. Quick, let's do it. Forget it. I try, but you have really patience. You need patience. That's a very important point, Like in Thailand, they said, you have to be really giant. Otherwise, you can do that. You will lose money always, And by the way, Mr. Rogers, just to give you a small tip about the people who burn stone. I remember Mr. Rogers, he was always, checking stone and try to burn this. And one time, and he know even what's going to happen. He want to try to burn a diamond. Of course he got charcoal, but he cannot believe the book. He want to do it by himself, but see by himself.
Yeah, he wanted to see by himself.
And sometimes the people say, don't burn the. In the end, nighttime you go and say, maybe they do it the wrong way, so I will try it. We'll never know,
Yeah.
That's the burner mentality.
I feel like sometimes it's the same in cutting. If you really want to be good, you have to try to do the thing that you're not supposed to do, and sometimes it's great. Usually it's awful, but sometimes you learn something.
And sometimes you discover things, Sometimes you discover things, and you say, and nobody talk about,
Yeah. So, okay, I want to shift the conversation a little bit. I'm curious because you are now, at least in my eyes, you're like one of the veterans of the trade in Bangkok. You've been here for a long time. So tell us a little bit of what was it like in these early days, before the JTC, before Gem Tower, when I imagine it was so much smaller and small shops.
But first of all, was a lot of traffic. We didn't have SkyTrain, and all the business was in Mahesak. Now in all our soil in 19 and all the GTC, no more. That time it was all in Mahesak, with us offices, and foreigners were going to offices and sit in office, and in the office, the owner of the office were calling the brokers. They were taking percentage, and you are buying stone. And on Friday they were going to Chantaburi, but Chantaburi, when I go to Chantaburi, it took me three hours. That time was like a half day, or was like 5 hours at least,
Yeah. And so was there a lot less stone sellers then? Because now, of course, the JTC
was more.
So many people.
Was more, because don't forget, at that time, Ruby from and Sapphire from Thailand, and from Thailand, Siam Ruby was in production, the mine, So a lot of people was going for ruby, most of ruby. And then at that date when I arrived also, the tide just at that time start to hit the Gaida from Sri Lanka.
Okay.
And I remember some Thai were coming from the oven, and they were having bags of sapphire, heat treated sapphire, bags.
So this is like you. So you came in right in almost in like a legendary moment. This is a story that
Yes, yes, that was amazing. I always remember. Sometime even white sapphire, white sapphire those days were like $1, $2 a carat, And I remember people were that the one off color they call it because they were trying to burn the Gaida and the color didn't come, so they were having bag of all off color, and it was like $2 a carat. Today, a clean white sapphire they're asking $1,000 a carat. Big size.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes I remember those big bags. It was bags. That was the period.
So what do you think? Aside from just the new buildings and stuff, has Bangkok changed a lot, or does it still have the same feeling as far as the gem trade goes?
I think if you think about your question, all over the world, everything changed.
Yeah.
With the internet and all these things. So the business is not. It's changed. Everything changed.
Yeah.
The way of doing business. We didn't have auction that day.
There was no internet. There was no mobile phone. There was no WhatsApp. Trade was quite different.
Much different. And if you buy
People were not saying, okay, let's meet at this place and have lunch and look at stone. And I send you the photo, I send you the video. Even in 2005, there was not that. It came, actually, all that is less than
the only way is to take an airplane and fly and go and show you stone, Because that time, I remember that time we will have a fax. The fax was a big thing, Fax. But fax, you can do nothing with fax.
Yeah.
Just to send a message, or a bill or whatever.
And what about Chantaburi? Was Chantaburi much different than it is today?
In a way, not much. In a way, Actually, the trade was much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of more people. So Friday was packed. Really packed. And
that was the period of the markets.
And Chantaburi was good for one thing. I remember. You can go to Chantaburi on Friday because it was a big trip. You go on Friday, Saturday, come back on Sunday, and whatever you sold, you bought in Chantaburi, you can sell it in Bangkok. You didn't have to. I didn't have to go to France or just small profit. You can sell in Bangkok. There's all people, foreigner coming. They were not going much to Chantaburi, by the way. Only the one with the offices. Otherwise, that time even nobody was speaking English. The trip was a big trip, and in the mine, nobody was going to the mine. And that time was the Khmer Rouge, Khmer Rouge area. So nobody was,
Cambodia, not in January, but on Pailin and Samlot. Yes, that was war there. There was war until the end of the 1990s.
All the border was full of refugees, actually. A lot of refugees camp, and all these things.
Okay. I remember the first time I went to Pailin, it was in 2004. People were thinking that I will go to die there because there were people in Chantaburi were very afraid. They heard so many stories about people dying, about how it is dangerous, and people in Bangkok and Chantaburi were telling me, Vincent, you should not go. But it was 4 or 5 years after the war, and it still has the reputation of a dangerous place. Now it's very quiet.
All this area now is very touristic place. It's beautiful. You have Koh Chang, all the island, Koh Chang, Komak. Koh Chang is the second biggest island in Thailand. It's beautiful. A lot of natural reserve, national park, and a lot of Thai people go for long weekend there. So, but at that time when I was going there and going even to Trat because I did some tour, some TV thing, and I was going. Nobody, even Thai people, they were telling me, "Are you crazy? What are you doing there? To the border?" I said, I was having my connection there, so I couldn't go without any fear. But it was quite something.
And so, and I know even today you still have such a connection there because you're still going there every single weekend.
Course of the connection, of course. When when you stay a long time in a place, of course, this is automatic,
Yeah,
As especially if you speak the language.
yeah,
If you speak the language, then everything is open. And for like Thai people, they love foreigner who can speak the language because they want to know about foreigner. They are still, even today, they still have kind of cliche about how we think, which is, and sometimes I find out that we are the same. For few things.
yeah,
So then, okay, you
yeah.
surprise them. That's the way.
And so what about the mining situation? I know you had already mentioned, the mines were active at that time. For me coming in, 5 years ago or whatever, mining is like a sort of a ancient history now, but for you, it was
Yes,
active. So how
Thailand,
different?
yes.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
Thailand
I
is
mean
ancient.
specifically, yeah, the Chantaberry rubies and everything. Was it
That
what was going on? I mean,
Burma, no, Thailand also. There is some few minor there, but as Vincent when many times is not anymore a big thing. It's more
yeah,
artisanal than anything.
Yeah,
But
I never saw, except around Kauploiwen, because after the barium treatment, they found out that all the stones from around Kauploiwen were reacting very well to barium. So after 2002, 2003, you started to have again mechanical mining around Kauploiwen. But when I studied in gemology in Thailand in 2000, there was nearly no more mining around Chantaburi, around Borai. I was going around there, and there was basically nothing. At this time, it was I was reading about mining in the area, like in Ruby and Sapphire, but that was in the 1980s, 1990s. There was
yeah,
still mining in Kanchanaburi.
yeah,
Sapphire mining was still strong
yeah,
in
but it was
Kanchanaburi in
different
the early
mining.
2000s.
Mining.
Yeah, there
Different
was
scale.
SAP.
That's why.
SAP was yeah, but now they are still mining. It seems that SAP, but they are more mining. It seems for gravel for home decoration, and then sapphire is becoming a byproduct of mining for gravel because it seems that the Thai way of life evaluate, and now there is a big market for home decoration in Thailand, and all the gravel from Kanchanaburi are used and sold for decoration. And actually, the company, from what I heard, is making more money. When every time I went there, they say, "Oh, now we are mainly mining gravel." And yeah, sometimes we remine some place, we find few sapphire, but the main business that is paying for the cost of the mining, their main mining plan, is mining for decoration material, which is funny when you think about it.
yeah,
Yeah, but it was completely different mining, big scale
But
mining.
yeah, at this time it
Well,
was
it
just
was a
different.
destruction mining. They rip off the mine in only a few years, which because they went with a big excavator, all over hundreds of it,
Yeah, yeah.
and they dig everything.
That company, SAP, was before they were a big tin mining company. And when the price for tin crashed, they decided to move from tin to sapphire. And when they feel that their place was nearly exhausted, they remine what they mine in order to get basically decoration, construction material.
mm,
So it's interesting the way that this company was going from tin to sapphire, from sapphire to home decoration material and gravels and things like that, and still a bit of sapphire, but yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
very little.
okay. So
Now yes, but before I think it was big. I heard it was the biggest, the largest sapphire mine in the world in the 1980s.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, incredible. But the problem, what there were oversupply of sapphire, so the price completely crashed at that time. You know, completely crashed, big. And so that was not so clever for.
Yeah, at the end of the 90s, you leave the Asian crisis here in 1997 when everything collapsed and you had the Thai baht that lost 50% of its value to the US dollar.
That was in 98. 98.
98, yes.
It's really later, like 98.
Yeah, but that you leave that period in Thailand that really was compared to now. You see the kind of crisis you have. I think 1998 what was it worse on the regarding the business? I heard that you have.
Well, no, actually, for some people, it was even better because I tell you one thing, you in that time, like for Thailand, some people did a lot of money because let's say you sold to a customer $10,000, okay, of stone. That time the baht was 25. So when he pay you, you get 250,000 baht. And in one week, one day, when he pay you the 10,000 was double, 500,000 baht. So people who were having stock in dollar and sold the stock, they get double money in baht. And so some people did, and for the buyers, let's say you're a buyer, because the Thai, they stay with the baht, they have the cost in baht. So there is one big story about diamond. Diamond, lot of diamond dealer from Europe and America rushed to Thailand to buy back the diamond from the pawn shop, because the pawn shop, they got the diamond in baht. Let's say $10,000 of diamond in baht. But when the baht was 50, actually for foreigner was half price of international price. So they bought back everything, So some people did a lot of.
Yeah, but many people lost a lot. People who borrow some money in US dollar at this time, then they got all the low, double, and
it was different because in our business as gem dealer, sometimes when the business is bad, you have other option. Let's say there is no customer, you have the option to buy. It's time to buy. You have production, you can buy. Sometimes you have a lot of production, but you don't have customer. Sometimes it's the opposite. You have a lot of customer, but no production. You have to. But this time is both. We don't have production, we don't have customer.
Yeah. So for you over these 40 years, for you over these 40 years, how you will qualify this period compared to everything you have seen for the past 40 years? You have seen the crisis in 1998. You have seen the crisis in 2008, and now compared to.
It's tough. This time is very tough because the people who have, I'm talking about people who have credits or lose the job, and this is very difficult now. Very, very difficult.
You have many Thai people with credit, I think. Many Thai people.
I have a lot of credit. But I think it's tough all over, unfortunately, all over the world. So the only thing now, if we discuss about COVID, we hope that they find a quick vaccine which will work, and then we can go back to our business altogether. As usual. It's very difficult.
In mining, from what I hear from gem producing area where there are still miners, most of them move to gold. I mean, very few people who are mining gemstones like scale miners, they move to gold because the price of gold is so high. And,
I have few Thai friends which are now going to Africa. Anyway, they go back. They have nothing to do. It's okay. If we have to wait here, we prefer to wait there in the bush. At least maybe we can get some stone. And we come back when
in the bush you have social distancing because you are not in a big city, you are kind of alone in the bush.
I mean, when I say bush, in Montepuez and this and that, the Thai have them house, and so many are going to Tanzania for Longido, Sapphire, Ruby. Longido is getting new production, which is very, very nice, very open color, very, very a new one. If you have chance, I will show you this week or next week. I have some lot. When you see the process, you thought already heat treat, very open color, which was not the case a few years ago, which was the dark side.
So Karim,
we talk about rough, the good thing about Thailand and doing heat treatment, each time that there is a new mine, in Chantaburi, in our heat treatment facility, we are the first to know it, because people come with samples. We have this new ruby, can be from Guinea, whatever. Can you heat? So we heat all year long, many kind of all rubies. So we always know when there's a new mine, you know.
Yeah, because people want to.
That's
They
one of
buy,
the best
they
part
buy
of
the they buy production in the near the mine, and then they want to see if anything can be improved, or they want to try the material.
because as we know, you know, any production, for example, of ruby or sapphire, the percentage of gem is very low. So the rest have to be treated. I mean, if you want nice value on it. So that's
And this is really what something that I saw is when you go to a gem producing area, you know that the gem producing area is okay. When you see people after a while, after 2 or 3 years, if there are still people, it means that there is a treatment. Because in most places, if there is no treatment, miners cannot survive with less than 1% of the production able to find a market. There is no way. So they need to pay for, you know, their food, their daily cost. And, you know, from time to time, they will have a nice stone that will be their profit. So it was something that really struck me when I saw that, and I discussed with Karim, is actually the stone that people enjoy so much as the unheated stone are a byproduct of mining for heat-treated material. Because when I go to most of the mining areas, if there is no treatment, there are no miners, because miners cannot survive with just the tiny percentage of material that is clean enough and beautiful enough to be to go directly to a guy like you, Justin, to go directly to a cutter.
actually last 2 weeks ago, somebody called me and said, we have 2 tons of Guinea ruby. What do you think is worth it? This and that. Then I tell, you want to send me 2 tons? I say, wait a second, don't send me anything. I say, I have a drawer with all countries ruby heated. And I know that Guinea ruby is very difficult to heat, and it's not a good source for corundum. Even there is a lot, but it's very low corundum. So I send him a picture back of the already heated quality that he sent me the picture, and he said, okay, you understand. So, you know.
Oh, you have like a magic trick right there.
This is something very common. You all the time have people say, I have 1 ton of that. Can you do something with that? And there are some materials, some burners in Thailand, like Karim says, they have tried everything. They love to, they will try this, they will try that, they will try that, they will try that. And if you want to know about, you want to visit, to have a world tour of the ruby and sapphire, you go to some burners, and they have. They tried everything. They tried the stone from all the sources, and they will tell you. It's funny because there are some burners, they will be good with one type of material, but another burner will be good with another type of material, because their furnace are different, their setting are different, and their protocol are different. So some people were able to succeed, for example, very well with sapphire from Australia, and some other people were much better with sapphire from Sri Lanka. And they are not using exactly the same techniques. Their furnace is different. Their condition, like mainly oxidation or releasing condition. You know, the atmosphere is slightly different, and one guy will be more efficient, another guy will be more efficient.
Yeah.
So it's.
So Karim, do you have a specialty, or are you able to do most things?
Ruby, I did sapphire. Of course, you know, you have to try everything. So mostly my specialty is ruby, but of course I did sapphire and
I mean, locality-wise,
tourmalines, aquamarines, you know, which are quite easy one, you know. I mean, you know, tanzanite and all these things, which is not difficult one. So you just have to follow the gradation of temperature, and then you can
actually, for many of these stones, you get a gemstone enhancement by Corundums, and you follow what is inside.
Yes, exactly. One more of my book.
The book by Corundums, who was working with Gary Rogers, That book is the Bible, still on many stones.
In 81, Kurt Nassau did a lot of experiment with even diffusion. There is some article very, very interesting. He was the, I think he was the first. He was the first.
He was the first to study that seriously and to write and to make a publication with gemstone enhancement. And he was the one, the first academic, serious academic, to really work on that. And he did that with the help of Gary Rogers. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was taking his book in the beginning. I was taking his book and following the temperature we're saying about not really ruby and sapphire, but mostly was all the semi-precious tanzanite, aquamarine, but after you find out that like aquamarine is dependent on the mine, all the mine are not the same, and Paraiba also tourmaline is different. For the green sapphire to open color is different. It depends on the mine. It depends because of course chemical composition is not the same, so you have to adjust. But that's why I say you have to be ready to lose money, because if you go too high, something can happen. You can crack it, or you can completely lose the color, and sometimes you can get even surprised.
Yeah. So Karim,
one time
you sent me a lot of.
I'm like an opal,
Yeah.
So everybody, I was like, I haven't. Everybody, it's opal. It's it's aquamarine. So I don't know what happened, but that's the surprise.
Yeah. So why don't we go through the steps? I know you sent me a bunch of photos of showing all the different steps for doing rubies. So why don't you walk us through it, and I'll pop the photos up, and you can kind of tell us a little bit of how you work.
Okay, this is the ruby production. This is my garden. Sometimes it's high tech without high tech, because you have to. This is after hydrofluoric acid cleaning.
Okay.
So you have to let them dry. You have to dry first.
Okay.
People are drying tomatoes, and some people are drying rubies.
Yes. I was drying all the ruby in my garden.
Where is he from? Where is he from? They were
Mozambique. Big
Mozambique.
These can be only Mozambique.
Yeah.
Mozambique mine produced so many tons of ruby. So this is all Mozambique.
If this is after the acid, then I missed this photo. This is in the acid, right?
This is this is our new. We have a facility in Chantaburi, which we work for, like Greenland Ruby and other company. So we do the acid, we do the heat treatment, we do the sorting. We do all the, and this is the acid system which we neutralize in the same time all the hydrofluoric acid which are very nocive, because as you know, most of the people a few years ago in Thailand, they were just washing with water without neutralizer, and everything is very bad for the soil. So we decide to do a proper treatment, and also this system give us is a free contact with the acid. Means I have a pump which I pump, acid pump, which go directly to the recipient, and then we add water, and everything is closed circuit.
Okay.
So you don't touch.
We don't touch. We don't touch. And then after we flush, that's why we have this tube. We flush everything to the big container on the back, which you have all the like I use baking soda for neutralizer or whatever. You can limestone or whatever, and then we clean up. We flush, neutralize, and then we are free of contamination, because there is one thing you don't want to play is with the hydrofluoric acid.
Yeah.
Very
dangerous. You have to say to people who are watching that, I work with acid when I was studying chemistry in university in France. Acid is dangerous. You have to know how to handle acid. Don't play with acid if you don't know the proper way to handle acid. You can die, you can damage, you can burn your lungs, you can really get into big trouble if you are using acid without the proper equipment and without the proper protocol. So please,
this
just
one
play.
is
Don't
the
play
worst.
with acid if you don't know how to do.
Yeah.
And this is the worst. I think that this is the most dangerous one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super. It's super.
This
And
is the
so,
most dangerous.
so
You
in
know
the,
why it's dangerous? Because of course, I got it in my finger and this and that, you know. But why is dangerous? That because it's not an acid when you get it and it burns. No, it doesn't burn.
Slow.
Slowly burn means
Yes.
you
And
start.
you cannot remove.
Remember, I got it in the finger. Okay, I washed it quickly, and then I didn't wash it enough. And then after half an hour, 1 hour, I want to sleep and I couldn't sleep. The pen go because he go through your bone, you know. That's very dangerous. Can go in, you know. So that's
I still remember I had an acid burn in university, and it was not a fun thing. And that's why many people in university, they have holes in their trousers and things like that because they got a tiny drop of acid. But the worst is if you get, with your nose, you have the vapors of acid, and you can totally damage your lungs, and you cannot heal from that. So it's acid wounds are serious. So people, if you want to
acid
do
that.
stuff, you have to be very, very careful if you handle acid.
Yeah, and this one is the for us as if you look a movie of cocaine and drug dealers in Colombia and this and that, that's the way when they want to make a corpse disappear, they put it in hydrofluoric acid because you dissolve it completely.
yeah.
They put- yeah,
So in terms of
that's
rubies, what's the point of the hydrofluoric acid? What are you trying to do with that?
because you know when you have a ruby, you don't have only ruby inside the stone, you know.
Yeah.
So like you have the amphibolite as a amphibolite, you have a mica, you can have all things. So
Calcite.
you don't want to contaminate the stone, you know. For
Okay.
that you have to clean completely free of other crystal or other stone the corundum, because
Okay.
don't forget we're going to high temperature with ruby.
Okay.
So we go up to more than 1,000 degrees. So after 1,002, you melt everything. And many times, I think you have a picture here when there is some garnet mixed with ruby, and we didn't separate. Yeah, here is it. And we didn't separate very well. The garnet we melt on the ruby, and if it's a lot like this, you can really damage a lot, you know.
So all this is melted right here, right? It's all stuck together.
Yes,
Melted garnet. Melted garnet.
because we have normally what we do a pre-burn, you know. But sometimes people give you a lot and say, "Oh, we take out all the garnet. Don't worry," you know. So you believe them. So then you hit and you get this result because all the garnet melt, you know. But
this is simple. Corundum has a very high melting point, like over 2,000. But many other minerals like garnet, like pyrite, like things like that, have a much lower melting point. So if you hit some corundum and you have as inclusion, or you have within fracture, some minerals that are not corundum, of course, when you hit, this mineral will melt and will become a liquid. And usually this liquid is not transparent. You will have a melted garnet is turning into a black liquid. And when you cool down, like here, it turns into a black glass that will completely cover the stone, that will fill the fracture. And then basically you will have your rubies that will get stuck, glued together by melted garnet.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing is a waste. The whole thing can be a waste.
Depends. Sometimes we put it back in the acid and we keep it quite long, and we can save some corundum, some ruby.
Okay. But you try to avoid this. This is what you don't want to do.
Normally, if you bring me a lot and we put in acid or whatever, before we try to do a preheat. Very easy after preheat to just take out the garnet. Yeah.
Okay. So then after the acid, okay, we saw this. You're going to dry it, and then you're going to start.
Right, and after when it's dry, it's ready for heat treatment.
Yeah. Okay. So then you're going to be loading it up into the crucible.
Yeah. So crucible, we have two techniques, no?
Okay.
Or we use borax for healing fracture in crack material, but also sometimes some material are completely clean. You know, it means there is no crack, nothing. we don't use anything. We don't need to use anything. That's what the lab give you. Only hash means there is no borax,
No
no
residue.
no healing, no borax.
Yeah. Borax is mainly used for healing fracture. If you have no fracture, there is not really any reason to use borax, except that sometimes with borax you have a kind of a better oxidizing atmosphere. But if you control well your atmosphere, you don't need to, in that case, to use borax. Borax is to heal the fracture, to recrystallize the fracture, to make sure that light can go through and the fracture doesn't exist anymore and is not anymore a thread for the durability of the stone. So you will be able to cut the stone, it will not break into small pieces when you will cut the stone.
So somebody just asked, borax is flux healing, right?
Yeah,
Flux,
borax
yeah.
is the flux for corundum.
Okay.
Borax is a mineral, natural mineral, like a kind of a borax. It's a mineral that you find traditionally on the Silk Road in Himalaya, things like that. And it's a mineral that is a flux for corundum. So it means when you heat corundum with borax, corundum will be dissolved under his melting point, that is 2000 something. With borax, around 1002 to 1003, it will start to get dissolved into borax. When borax become liquid, it will absorb, it will corrode corundum.
Okay.
It helped the corundum actually. Corundum melt at 2040, something like that.
Yeah.
But if you put borax on the fracture, it will melt. I mean, that's why he will heal at less temperature, bring down the melting point, the borax.
And so when you are loading the stones into the crucible like this, when you heat them up, is there any chance that they're going to get stuck together, or it's okay?
Sure.
They don't get stuck. We have our own technique when we pull down the stone. You know, when the crucible is hot, we take it out, and we have the technique. Each burner has his technique. So, and then sometime for big, like Greenland ruby, for example, sometimes we have small size. We have also we have the clipper, people who clip, professional clippers, and they clip the stone when they're stuck together. So that can be.
That's a job.
Not really a problem, actually.
And so this is the furnace that you're using down in Chantaburi to do your
furnace. That's typical Thai furnace. It's not Thai furnace. Actually, we build the furnace. Okay. There is company who build the bolt, and we choose which element we're going to put in. And actually, a big change in the last 10 years is like all the best component at that day were German, you know, German component, you know, alumina oxide, all the panel and all these things. But and lot of very expensive, you know, very expensive. So at those days, the good oven were quite expensive. So fortunately now we have a Chinese one, which in the beginning that was not so good, but today they produce very nice alumina oxide panel, and you see the thermostat, the computer we have. You choose your computer. We use the Japanese. You can use the German one. We manage how much you want to pay. We ask you if you want an oven, and compare what you want to pay. We put the better element or not. You know what I mean? So, but they are beast. These ovens are beast. We can burn every day for how many months, how many years, no problem. It's they don't broke, you know, they always work.
Justin, you see, the component of the furnace are very important because one of the big costs of heating, especially when you have to heat at a very high temperature, is a component who will break. So if you heat, for example, if you want to heat at 1007, 1008, components that will survive this temperature are not really cheap. So sometime after 4 or 5 burn, the component is broken. Then you have to replace, and you have to buy a new one and buy a new one. And the other thing is, when you want to do heat treatment and you want to do the thing correctly, you want to be sure that your components are very pure. Because if you heat, for example, at 1007 or something like that, with a component that is not pure alumina, you will diffuse within your corundum the impurities that you have in the crucible in the furnace. This is something that we saw when we were working lab, and I was collaborating with some burners. You had some burners in Chantaburi at one point. They were using crucible, used crucible, and they were recycling the crucible that were used. And some of the crucible had been used for barium treatment. So when they were recycling the crucibles that they were doing were not anymore pure alumina. There was a small percentage of barium. On every stone that was heated with that furnace was contaminated with barium. So you had some burners, they were telling me that, no, Vincent, I'm not adding any barium. But then they found out that, oh, Vincent, I was using some crucible that were recycled, and maybe it's coming from there. They changed the crucible, and then there was no more barium in their stone. So this is something that
also all the panel inside,
Yeah, the panel, the crucible, the different part of the furnace. Yeah. Even the panel. I know where we had a story. I had a story like that with John Emmett, where an American scientist who was also doing some heat treatment, and he contaminated some of my stone with barium because there was one of his elements of the furnace that he used in the past with a barium experiment. When you heat a stone with barium, when you make a heat treatment with barium, for example, is a very light element. It will go everywhere in the furnace and will contaminate the whole furnace. Then if you use any of this element in any other heat treatment, it will contaminate your stone with barium.
Wow.
So to have a furnace with very pure alumina, and the control of your furnace is critical. There are some burners, they will, they have one furnace for that, one furnace for that, one furnace for that. And they will not mix because they know that you can get problem.
Okay.
You can contaminate your furnace if you are, for example, if you are heating the wrong stone. If you are heating by mistake, you are using your furnace for corundum, and you are heating a chrysoberyl inside. Yeah. Chrysoberyl has a content of barium. You will contaminate all your furnace with barium. Yeah. And then all the ruby or sapphire you will heat after with that furnace will have a small amount of barium. And you send the stone to a lab, they will say barium heated.
Yeah. Okay.
So, anyway, the crucible today, which are alumina oxide, from China are quite poor, like 98, 99%. So, and this is a big release for us as a dealer because it's much cheaper. Okay. You can buy in boxes, and they are. At those days when you were buying a German one, and it was like a fortune. So you were. That's why what happened. They were doing barium, they didn't want to change the crucible, and because they were using German crucible, and like $60 for one crucible or $100, So, okay, use it one more time, use it more time. But today, as for Greenland ruby, sometimes there is other element, and then we get really bad result with crucible sometimes, because of the crystal inside the ruby, so it melts inside, so the crucible will become all black sometimes. Wow. So, but we don't have a problem to change the crucible because it's much cheaper.
Yeah. So next step, you're going to you have the stones in the crucible. You're going to put the crucible into the heating chamber.
Yeah.
Okay. So then. Well, you have to close it, right? Or does it heat open like that?
Of course, you have to close.
Okay. I'm just making sure.
Just to take the photo. You close, sure.
Okay. Just making sure. So then, and then, so of course, the temperature and the time, how you go up, how you go down. This is part of the secret.
We have the computer, the thermostat, and then you program it, And most of the time, I do it. We start in the evening and we open in the next morning, Okay. So you have like minimum, because it depends which step we want to do,
Yeah.
We can go.
The great thing now with modern furnace, you can program. In the past, you have to be next to the furnace, and you had to. Armil was Samoun was telling me all the time that when he was doing heat treatment with his father, he had to stay next to the furnace, and he wanted to raise the temperature like 1 degree every 3 minutes. So every 3 minutes, he had to turn the thermostat to increase the temperature of the furnace by 1 degree. So it was taking some time, 2 days. And with his father, they were sleeping, and they were every 3 minutes, you turn the thermostat 1 degree in order to raise the temperature slowly and slowly.
Wow.
So
And
now it's more easy.
completely programmable. With those thermostat, we can do whatever we want. We can do palier, up, down. Can do it all. That's the good thing.
And so
And
You have to know how to use them. You have to know what you're doing. That's the point.
yeah. But it's not difficult when
So-
it's a thermostat.
So then, Karim, I'm imagining after so many years of experience now, you must have like a recipe book somewhere, a recipe of every material, every locality.
Yes. For rubies, especially for rubies, each mine is different. Each size is different sometimes, especially for acid.
Mm-hmm.
And quality, like you don't use the same percentage of acid for all quality. Like let's say for like lead glass, we don't do lead glass, but we did experiment before also, and we try to. If you remember the lead glass in the beginning, the big problem with the lead glass was that people say, when they put in the flame, the ruby melt, or there is big crack, or after
The glass was melting. The ruby was not melting, but the glass was melting.
Yeah, it was not bad. But something crack was happening and color was changing. So we did some new borax, actually, some new treatment to avoid this. So the last years, the treatment of lead glass is much more stable, actually.
Well, yeah, because they were not using the composition of the glass. The type glass can be many. You have many type of. You have some glass that will melt at low temperature. You have some glass that will melt at quite high temperature, depending on the composition of the glass. So you
I
can
was
play
talking
with
about the rough, right? That's why I came to the lead glass. So the rough lead glass, we put it in acid, and we have, because you want that everything go in, so you have to put it as long as you can in the acid. So sometimes with the pure acid, hydrofluoric acid, we keep it for even 3 weeks, 5 weeks, which you cannot do with normal rough, if like only for heat treatment, like better quality rough. So depend on the quality of the rough, depend on the size of the rough. You don't put the same amount of acid for 12 millimeter, how you read screen, 12 millimeter screen, and 25 millimeter screen. It's different acid percentage.
Okay.
So that's also, and for heat treatment is the same.
Okay. So then you're going to go through your recipe or your procedure or whatever. The following day, it's ready to come out.
Yeah.
So then you're going to pull it out. Obviously, we can see that it's very, very hot because it's producing light. It's so hot. Is this actually the stones? Oh yeah, I guess we can see the stones are so hot. They're like little light bulbs.
Yeah, incandescent.
That this, when you take out the stone, we cannot be many in the room. Many people say, I said, no distraction at all, because you have to be 100% concentrate. So many times in the morning, before we take out the stone from the oven, I have to have 2-3 cups of tea, I have to be up, you cannot be like, the day before, you cannot have a lot of whiskey or drink too much, because the next day you have to know what you're doing and you have to be concentrated. You don't want the crucible fall or you do some mistake, Yeah. So believe me, when you open the oven and the temperature is already high, you have to wake up immediately. So that's very, very important time,
Okay.
When you take, don't forget, it's hot.
Yeah. So then we can see now they're not glowing as much. It's cooled down a bit. How long does it take before you can really start to handle them?
Ooh, I wait.
On the
I
size
wait
of the stone,
5 minutes. It
it
depends.
depends
I
how
wait.
cool, how
Five
quick
minutes.
it will cool.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
yeah. And you don't want because I tell you one thing with expensive stone, because those one when I think when with expensive stone you have to really be careful,
Mm-hmm.
because if there is if there is a shock temperature, the stone crack,
Yeah.
break.
Any stone can have some stress inside. You have some stone there, and if the temperature change too quick, the crystal structure, because this is a crystal, and the atom are linked with bonds,
Mm-hmm.
and if temperature change too quickly and you have some stress, the structure can break and you have a fracture that appear.
Very easy,
So
very even if you are in a room which you have like wind coming, or you cannot, because only small wind can break your stone. You
Wow.
have a pit, and some big stone like ruby or sapphire big stone sometimes is like $100,000 stone or more, or 50,000, and if you break it, that's it, you lose the money.
Yeah.
this is where your dream is gone, and people are thinking that you have a stone at the mine and you can. What is the value of the stone? Well, it depends. If the burner breaks the stone because there was something happened during the burning process, and at the end, your
Yeah,
stone has zero value
Yeah.
because it was messed up, or if the cutter breaks the stone. So that's potential value. Potential value. That's the interesting thing about gemstone, is that you are never sure about what will be the finished product until you see the finished product.
Yeah.
It's all a dream until the end. And when at the end you have your faceted stone, then you know what it is. But
Yeah.
everything before, it's about dreaming a little bit, maybe guessing if you are more knowledgeable, or about if you are a good professional, then it's
yeah, yeah.
business. Yeah.
That's I mean, after some time, after certain time, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, there's always surprise, but we know what we can do, and very important, we know what we cannot do, which
Yeah.
is more important.
So let's see a few. You sent me a few of the before and after. So let's see what can you do actually.
Was Sapphire, yes, from Madagascar, yeah, yeah, yeah.
From Angelo, correct? That's Angelo Sapphire
Best colors, the best color, very nice color.
from 2014, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 2000.
So
The one we worked on. Yeah.
so
Okay.
for this picture, did you heat all of this together, or the left and right is two different burns?
I think was all together. I think was all together,
But
and a
we
separate.
you can see, especially in this pile where there's almost no color, and then here it's definitely gotten blue, and then here it's gotten very saturated, which is pretty incredible. I mean, it's really like it's magic in some way, right? Or it's science.
And as I tell you, the interesting about the sapphire, you can reverse.
Yeah.
You can make them colorless again.
Yeah, and that's bad,
Yeah.
right? That's what happens when you don't do it correctly.
Well,
Yeah.
no, it depends. In the past, some stone.
In terms of sapphire, we reduce to get the blue. Okay,
Yeah.
we do reduction, which
So
which means you no oxygen at all,
Okay.
But if I think you have the picture where you get the yellow,
Yeah.
and oxidize, and this one, yes, this one I did it 3 times: blue to yellow, yellow to blue, blue to yellow, yellow to blue. You can go back, by oxidizing the yellow one you oxidize, the blue one you reduce.
Okay.
So,
You see, just in the past, you had some stones that were yellowish or light blue. At this time, the market, there was colorless sapphires that were used as simulant for diamond, had a higher value than light blue. So people were hitting the stone to make the color of light yellow or light blue become colorless, because colorless sapphire, the value for colorless sapphire was higher than light blue or light yellow. So then people were heating in order to eliminate the color, because you could make money. You buy a light blue sapphire or a light yellow sapphire, you turn it into colorless, you make money. Now, in the 1970s, when the Thai discovered the Gouda treatment, they found a way, not under oxidizing condition, but under reducing condition, to increase the blue, turning some stones that were milky or silky and light blue or yellowish into transparent blue. And then you could increase the value of a stone that was, like you saw in the previous photograph, that was light blue or medium blue into a deeper blue stone. Yes.
Yeah, but in that time also mostly was the big thing was about the Gaida, you know.
Yes, that was the thing, the Gouda. So this milky stone.
They were dissolving the rutil, you know, rutil, and that was a big thing because they tell you many stories. Thai were telling me that they went to many restaurants, which the fish tank, the famous fish tank, was all the bag was all Gaida, because Sri Lankan people didn't know what to do with it, you know. Yeah. So it was so Thai people went some restaurant and bought the fish tanks, and Sri Lankan people didn't understand why they're buying fish tanks, you know. And actually, was all the back was Gaida. They were heating them, and they were all this blue stone, you know, but dissolving the rutil.
But the next stone, the next slide, Justin, the one with the yellow and the blue. Yeah. It's the next one. Can you return to that one? Yes. So, Karim, that one that was a yellow with a little bit of greenish, you hit the stone 3 times and 3 times from yellow to green, from yellow to blue, and from blue to yellow 3 times like that, just reversing.
Yeah. I was playing, just playing. You know.
Do you still have the stone, or you sold it? You still have the stone?
Actually, I have some stone. I'm not sure. But I kept some stone. I have kept some, which actually are 2 color, you know.
Okay. No, but this one that went 2 or 3 times from blue to green, from a yellow to blue.
I have to check on my drawer, you know. I have my drawer.
Yeah, if you still have it, you tell me, because I would love to study the stone.
Okay.
So somebody had just asked if you can turn it, you know, if oxidizing environment's turning it yellow, is there any way to tell if the yellow color is natural or due to treatment?
You send it to a lab, and lab will find out.
The lab will tell you, but the color is natural, by the way, you know. It's
magic.
Chemical, there's nothing, it's physics, you know.
Yeah. So you're just moving you're moving the
and the color will never go away, that's for sure.
Yeah.
There is one thing, you know, in a lab, we can find out, we can know that the stone was heated, but there is no way to know what was the color of the stone before heat treatment. Mm-hmm. We see a final product, we know that this stone was heated, but we don't know if the stone was heated 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. What was the color before? We cannot know. The only thing we know is there are evidence of heat treatment.
Yeah.
That's it. And we can understand where the color is coming from. Some yellow sapphire, you can have yellow just because of the iron, or you can have also yellow coming from color centers. In some stone, you have yellow coming from iron and yellow coming from color center in the same stone. Mm. Or some stone have only yellow coming from color center. Some stone have yellow all coming from iron.
Yeah. Okay, so Karim, I want to pose a few questions from the audience to you, because several people have asked specific things about treatment, which I think are a bit interesting. So Gaurav Ag had asked before, he said certain yellow sapphires are termed as Bangkok treated. Basically, what he wants to know is, what does that actually mean? What treatment do they undergo? Is it heat? Is it flux? Is it something else?
So you have to know which kind of yellow. You have the famous, actually, beryllium yellow, you know, which come from actually was a green before heat treatment, and this mine is in Chantaburi, or is the Tanzanian mine also, the famous one, you know. But the yellow beryllium, a lot of beryllium yellow these days.
Basically, beryllium is a poison for blue. Every stone, you can turn a blue sapphire into yellow. You can turn a green sapphire into a yellow with barium treatment.
Mm-hmm.
You can, so there are different ways, but if you want to understand barium treatment, barium is a poison for blue. It eliminates the blue. So if the stone is green, it means that you have some yellow and some blue. Yellow and blue together, the stone look green.
Mm-hmm.
Or you may have a layer of yellow, a layer of blue, a layer of yellow. And if the value for green sapphire is maybe $10 per carat, but the value for yellow is 25, then you turn your green into yellow. You can, if your heat treatment cost, is covered, you can make a profit turning green sapphire into yellow. This is what is happening with a lot of production. For example, in Australia, a lot of yellow, green, blue sapphire from Australia or from North Madagascar are turned into yellow because bright yellow value in the market is higher than green or is higher than dark blue. This is what is going on.
Especially the dark blue with the greenish, So better to turn a nice yellow.
Yes. And so in some place, there is a very good market for yellow, for example, in India, for in Thailand,
those one are not treated because they use it for astrology. So mostly is a pale yellow. Indian don't use the treated one. So there is a market for untreated pale yellow in India as astrology.
Okay. So they don't want beryllium treatment for the astrological.
They don't want for astrology, good luck and this. So they don't use but they can be very pale yellow that they accepted. But as yellow, of course, in Sri Lanka, they have a lot of yellow, which are they're only heat or unheat.
Okay.
But which is which you can find today. But most of the last 10 years was a lot of beryllium.
Yeah. So another question, John Madison had asked, what percentage of the Greenland production is borax treated?
What percentage? Big percentage,
Nearly all.
Yeah. Because it's very cracked material. So big percentage.
Well, I was just going to say, so for that material, then the borax treatment becomes pretty necessary, right, to make it into the quality that they're looking for.
Yeah. But we help Mother Nature to heal the fracture because the material, the color of Greenland ruby, they are beautiful reds, very nice color, very pleasant color. So it will be a shame to color, and to help to make nice stone. Actually, most of the production is cabochon, nice cabochon, nice beads. We have some cut stone, of course. When they hit a nice pocket, you have some good transparent crystal one. But yeah, the big percentage is heated, and borax, of course, to heal.
To make it simple, any ruby with iron content, because iron will create some absorption, will have a brighter color on a purer red color if you heat it. Any ruby with an iron content will benefit by heat treatment in oxidizing condition, because every time you have iron, if you have a little bit of titanium, it will create some absorption. If there was not, if there was no chromium, the stone will be light blue. But actually, if you have a little bit of iron and titanium, you will see the stone red, but there will be this blue thing that you will not see as blue as long as there is not too much. If not, the stone start to become purple, but you will have this absorption from blue that will come as stone. So if you heat the stone in oxidizing, any ruby with iron content will get brighter, a little bit brighter, or significantly brighter after heat treatment. So most of them benefit from heat treatment. And then, of course, the one with a fracture, if you heal the fracture, you will improve the transparency, the durability of the stone, and things like that.
It's not only about that, it's also the, let's say, contamination of other crystal inside the corundum. When I say contamination, it's not really a contamination because there is other crystal which can be iolite can be calcite, pyrite. So which are really inside the crystal, you know. So if you don't put it in acid and take out all those things, then you know you cannot hit them. You cannot hit them, you know.
Yeah.
Because of course the calcite or whatever is inside the iolite, we melt inside the crystal, which become I mean not a nice color, you know. Not,
And so Didier Albert had asked, what about heating chrysoberyls? Is that something that's done, or?
chrysoberyl,
we melt at 1001. It's like heating emerald.
yeah,
It,
low temperature.
Okay.
But chrysoberyl, the most famous treatment is the gamma, you know, the heat with gamma
Radiation.
you can irradiate. Chrysoberyl, you can irradiate.
A lot of irradiation in chrysoberyl.
And then what does that do? That just intensifies color, or?
Intense color. You get intense color.
Okay.
Intense color, but it's not. You lose the color with the time. Actually,
it's dealing with color centers.
Yeah.
Color centers means that you have a vacancy. There is an atom that is missing somewhere in the structure, and this vacancy can trap an electron that create what we call a color center. And depending the nature of the atom you have next to that, then it can generate color or it cannot generate color. So you can have color centers in most crystal. Now, regarding heat treatment, the reason why you have heat treatment with corundum is basically two things. It's mainly due to the iron, because you can play with chromium. There is nothing you can play with heat. But because of iron, titanium, reducing atmosphere or oxidizing atmosphere, you can increase the blue or you can decrease the blue. So you can do something like that. You can, with heat treatment, you can play with it, and you can also play with the yellow. Again, it's because of the iron on the color center. So for corundum, there are things you can do with heat, but there are many gemstones. You cannot do anything with heat because these gemstones will melt at quite low temperature, and if you heat them, you will just melt them or destroy them. And with corundum, it's okay because it has a very high melting point, and you can heat the stone very high, and many things can happen during that time. But with other stones with low melting point, you cannot do much.
And depend on the mine.
Good luck. Good luck. Try to heat your garnet. You will melt them. You will destroy them, but you will not. Well, there are some things with demontoid garnet if you warm them, but
garnet is different.
Brownish, but
if you want to lose money, then you start to burn garnet.
Yeah, it's limited.
So
it's not magic. Heat treatment is not magic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Nick Bredhauer had asked, what percentage do you think of the world's rubies produced would be heat treated? Like of all the rubies in the world, how many of them do you think have?
Wow. But same is not the percentage. I would say
he's guessing it's high.
Right. I want to say I'm there by telling 92% can be a good number. You know,
Justin, it depends.
People say only two, but because of course you get nice color. Don't forget, it depends what you want to do with the rough. Okay, if you want to do cabochon, is one quality. You know, cut stone is different quality. But let's say, in generally, the transparent crystal stone with good color are only few percent.
Yeah.
So everything is open to heat treatment. You know.
Well, Justin, there is something you have to get in consideration. For example, 20 years ago, in quantity, the world most productive mine for ruby was the Johnson Ruby mine that was producing maybe 1 or 2 tons per month. So when you have a mine that is producing 1 or 2 tons per month and everything needs to be heat treated, then suddenly, if you look at the world production of ruby, probably more than 99% of the production is heated. Now you have something different because you have a mine that is in Mozambique that is producing some secondary, you have a secondary deposit of rubies that are more clean. They don't have fractures, they are not milky. And some of the rubies from Mozambique don't need heat treatment. You can cut and polish them like that. maybe the color will be improved if there was some heat treatment, but because people will pay higher price if the stone is not heated, maybe the percentage of rubies that is going to heat treatment will be lower. So it depends on which type of mine are in activity. At the time when there was Mogok, there was not too much need of heat treatment, but suddenly when Mongshu arrived, nearly all Mongshu need to be heated. So it depends on which mine are in activity. And this percentage about what is the percentage of rubies that require heat treatment depends mainly on the type of material that is produced, at the time you ask the question.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
and so here's another good one.
Mozambique is about 90% Mozambique.
Yeah.
Because
So
don't forget that the last years, 10 years, people want unheat stone.
yeah.
So, like I said, you have to choose between an ugly unheat stone and beautiful heat stone. So it's up to the customer and the demand actually.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you speak about statistics, 90% is different from 99.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, so here's another interesting question. Antoinette Matlin asks, is it true that extremely high heat makes corundums more brittle?
More brutal.
Brittle, like they can break easier.
Should be really extreme because otherwise it's the completely opposite.
Okay, it's making them stronger.
Yeah. Because I give you an example. When I was in my factory, we were cutting diamond cut, rubies, and my cutters knows when the stone was hit or not hit only by ship.
Okay.
The one which is one hand hit was easy to ship, very easy to ship, and the one was heated was not cheap. I mean, very, very, very little cheap because more tense. When you heat, you get it more compact. So
some stones have microfraction.
If you go above 1,750 or 1,800, you can damage the rough. That's for sure.
Because you're messing with the structure of the.
But you don't do it. Yeah. But normally it's the opposite. By heating a stone, you get less chip when you cut it.
Okay. I've heard other cutters tell me that they can tell the difference between heated and unheated by the feeling on the lap. So yeah.
Feeling on that, I'm not sure, but definitely it chip less, 100%.
Okay, so we have one question from this. There's a funny guy named Philippe. He says, from your experience, do you think the most beautiful stones are the heated ones or the unheated ones?
What question he's asking, because there's beautiful unheat and beautiful no heat. The beauty is irrelevant. What do you mean by beauty? The most beautiful stone I saw actually was unheat.
Okay. So
because some synthetic are super beautiful. You take a synthetic ruby, you cut it, and you have a perfect ruby with no very pure chromium, no inclusion inside. And if you get it to a good cutter, what is the most beautiful ruby you have seen? Perfect ruby, pure chromium, aluminum, perfect dosage of stuff, no inclusion, no nothing, well cut. Synthetic ruby is probably, if your natural ruby looks like a synthetic, it's a damn good one.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, so here's a question I think is quite interesting, something that we haven't really mentioned so far. This is from Mubashir Mansour. He was asking, or he's saying, if we look at other industries where they're heating things like metals and steels, there's so many articles and there's so much sort of transparent public information about the heating of different materials, but in the gem trade, it's much more of a secret. Do you think, or do either of you guys think that the gem trade should move towards greater transparency in heat treatments? Or is it, I mean, obviously we know that there is such thing as heat treatment.
It depends which kind of transparency you want. If we are transparent by saying this is heat by borax.
Yeah. I think he means more about how.
That's already a transparency,
Yeah.
But we don't have to tell what temperature we do, how we do it. But transparency for us is heated with what or without,
Yeah.
Justin, there is one thing funny. there is one thing funny about that. When I go to Chantaburi, when I go to meet with burners, all the burners, they tell me, my stones are heated. And people who go to burners, they buy stones, they know that they are heated. Now, I know there are many traders, they buy from burners, they know it's heated, and then they sell, they don't disclose the treatment. So it's very easy to blame the burner all the time. Oh, the burners, there are some, I know some, I don't speak, I speak about European dealers. They say, oh, I follow the regulation. When in your country, in America, you have to disclose, but in some other country, you don't have a specific regulation with gemstone. So by law, they have no obligation to disclose because there is no law about what you have to disclose, what you don't have to disclose. And some people just follow the regulation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
is it in their interest? Is it, they buy a stone that is heated and they know about it, and then they resell and they don't provide the information. And when the customer find out and they say, "Oh, maybe I was cheated by somebody I put in there," and basically they blame Thai people. Most of the people I know, they know what they buy, but then it doesn't mean that they will disclose to their customer. And these guys who are cheating their customer will blame the Thai. Every time I deal with a burner, I found that most of the burners all these burners were very honest people.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so,
I have to say that most of the burners I met were super honest guys.
yeah.
They are technical guys like people in the lab. They were very honest. And some of them, when you start to, when you don't call them cheater because they are burners, when you don't agree them, they are nice people. And then they start to explain you what they are doing.
Yeah.
there is two different things which we have to be very clear. Is that we disclose when is heat or no heat, borax, no borax. But the recipe, how to do it, we don't have to disclose it.
Yeah.
It's just a receipt. I saw on YouTube one channel, one big company who's doing the kebab. Kebab?
Yeah.
And they have the sauce receipt. So they show you all how they do the kebab. And then after they show the sauce to kick with the kebab, but the guy said, but we cannot give you the receipt of the sauce, but there is a sauce. Yeah. For us, it's the same. We can tell you this is heat with borax, high temperature, but how we do it, every industry don't disclose. Many industry don't disclose.
How many winemakers will explain you exactly how they do, and how many, most of the company will not explain everything they do, how they do all their know-how, but they will explain the thing about their product.
Yeah.
So, but now the thing is, in the trade, you have some people who are buying one product, and then because of regulation, which is not everywhere the same in the world, because of the difference in regulation, the way they do is they follow the regulation. They know the stone is heated, but at the point of sale, by law, they don't have to declare, so they don't declare.
Yeah. I think this is more of a failure of the law than anything to do with the trade, it seems to me.
Yeah. It's receipt, receipt and disclosure, two different things.
And so he kind of elaborated on that, saying, do you think that if you were openly telling your recipes to, let's say if you go to Chantaburi and you know all the burners and everybody tells everybody what they're doing, then maybe you can even make a better way, or maybe you'll improve the technique. Like if you hear someone else's technique, you'll have an idea. And I kind of understand his idea, but I see yours as well. It's a secret.
Technique, everybody have his own technique, and but in the end of the day, I can tell you, between Thai we talk. Okay. We talk, not everything, but we talk.
Yeah.
And we talk.
Is
every cook has their secret. They have their, and
So Karim,
the only thing sometimes, is the way you do it, but it's not a big secret. But everybody have his own recipe. That's it.
Yeah. So do you think?
I think the burners are easy to be blamed because most of the burners, they don't speak English. They don't speak French, so it was something very easy. For example, in France, to say that, oh, basically there is that because maybe I was cheated by a burner. These people, they are that and that and that. It's very easy to blame people who cannot defend themselves.
Yeah.
Very, very easy.
Yeah. Karim, I just wanted to ask a follow-up question because you made me think of it. If the Thai burners are, if they are speaking together a little bit, will they also speak with like a Sri Lankan burner, or is there a cultural divide? Like, we're not telling secrets to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's not.
Sri Lanka, everybody do his own cuisine, and Sri Lankan burner are good for Sapphire, and Thai burner are good for Ruby.
Okay.
So Sri Lankan burner don't tell Thai how they burn the Sapphire, and Ruby Thai don't tell how the Ruby
That's what I figured.
But I can tell you, when two burners meet, they speak and they enjoy speaking with each other.
Yeah. Okay, so
I want to. Every burner wants to know what the other is doing, and you are heating stone. Oh, okay.
But there is one funny thing. Burner like to show them oven.
Yeah.
The baby. Everybody says, look my oven. That's a big thing.
Okay. So this is like cutters and their polishing laps. Everybody's got a recipe for how they
exactly.
polish
the diamond powder, which grade you use, what you use. Everybody have its trick, and it's exactly the same thing.
This is my machine, but I have. But how quick you turn? Which at what time are you putting this disc, and then you replace with that one, and you are doing this, and you have this film that you put on it, and then you have this tour de main that you are using.
Everybody has
some people will want to show you because they feel that you are interesting enough to waste the time thing. But if you are coming and then you are asking like, they don't want to speak with you.
Yeah. Okay, so
I was impressed when I met burners how accessible they were. If you respect them, and if you show them that you can also bring them something, and this is Karim, when you exchange things with people, if you come and you give something, you are more likely to return. It doesn't mean that everything will tell you is true, because sometimes people have, it's funny, but you have words. People can say the same word, but it doesn't mean that the word have this word will have the same meaning in the brain of everybody. Sometimes you agree on the words, but in my mind, this word has this meaning. In the mind of the person in front, the word has another meaning. And for example, what does it mean high temperature? High temperature, yeah, it's high temperature. Okay, it's high temperature. What does it mean high temperature? I can tell you, if you put your hand in an oil that is 300 degrees, you will feel that the oil is high temperature. But for Ruby, maybe 300 degrees is not high temperature. What does it mean high temperature?
Okay, so I wanna shift it a little bit because we spoke a lot about treatments, but I want to speak a little bit about gem fields as well, because I know, Karim, you've been working you've been participating in the gem fields auctions for some years now. From the beginning. So obviously the gem field auction is, at least from what I know, it's sort of an elite level. Like, you really have to be a major player to be playing in that game. So how did you even get into that world?
First I was
working slow growth.
No, but as Gemfield is today one the best and the biggest source of Ruby, you have to be there if you want to buy Ruby.
Okay.
So I have good relationship with them from the beginning, and then they invite me to the auction, and I've been buying, and I learned a lot from the auction, because in the beginning it's difficult to get a lot, because then you have to adjust of the price of the market, of the way of thinking, and it's quite sharp. You have to be very, very sharp to get the lot.
Yeah.
And you can lose money very easily, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's very technically is high level.
It really changed the market, because before the auction with Gemfields, it was very difficult the ruby trade was very secret. People heard that, oh, there are some big stone in town, but you heard about rumors. But what was fascinating with the auction with Gemfields is that suddenly, for me, as a kind of a little bit outsider, a lab guy, I was able to enter a room where I could see, you had maybe 80 people, all the best, all the most professional ruby buyer was there, with their burner, with their cutter, and they were all basically queuing to look at the parcel. And you could see, all these people, this company, the best ruby people in the world, looking at the same stone and competing in order to bid for this stone. And it was the Gemfield auction are really super interesting because you have rumors. People look at each other. Who this guy? How many times he look at this schedule, this parcel, and things like that. So this is what I call the Ruby games. Every time I go to the Gemfield auction, I see Karim, I see Mr. Sandpal, I see Mr. Virasak, I see Mr. All the Ruby dealers are there, and they're watching each other and they are watching at the stone, and it's really fascinating. Every time I go there, I learn a lot.
Yeah.
You have to know exactly what you do because a mistake can be very costly because those parcels, as you know,
there are some people you see them one time and then you don't see them again because probably they lost money. And then they don't come back. But you see people, they are there all the time. So it means that they are making money every time. They know what they are doing. You see them when you go 5 or 6 times, you know who is doing.
Yeah.
But you have to take with you, you have to take, because house is very technical, you have to take with you the by team. You cannot go alone. You can't. It's too much pressure.
So then does your
I take Preformer. The Preformer is very important because he will give you an idea, this piece of rough, how many carat you can get for it. I mean, what is the size? Mm-hmm. And when you know the size, you know what price you can, and then you have to know about, can you hit this piece or not?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a piece like this one for hit or no hit. So this is another completely different price. And then
as a burner, has your experience
the value, the value also.
So as a burner, has your many years of experience as a burner been really important for?
Yes, because when you have one lot with 10 pieces of 2 grams each, which is 10 carat each, and you're going to make an average of 5 carat after cut, you have to know exactly from this 10 piece how many pieces are for heat and how many pieces are unheat, because the price is completely different.
And so then it seems like there must be so much calculations: heat, no heat, and then your cutting estimate, and then your sales estimate to make the buy.
So there is two mistakes you can do. What people do, and they get burned. How we said they get burned, because they don't come back. They lose money. First, the size. Mm-hmm. So many times I look the shape, because as you saw a ruby from Mozambique, I think, sometimes you see the size is 502, 501, 504. It's very, very rare when you see a piece which is 550, for example. It's always 01, 02, 04, 05. So you choose. You want a nice table with a cullet which is completely off center, or you want to center the stone, the cullet, to get better light.
Yeah.
So if you want to center the cullet, instead of getting a 5 carat, you will get a 4 carat.
Or 3 carat.
Or 3.5 carat. Mm-hmm. But from 3.5 to 4 to 5 carat is a big difference in the price on heat or heat.
Yeah.
That's the first mistake you can do, the size. And then the second mistake you can do is heat or no heat. Especially with Mogloto, Mogloto stone, which is the mine that Gemfield do, which is a little bit dark stone, lot of very rich in iron. And Mogloto, sometime you see you torch the stone, you see nice color, you look in the sun, nice color, it's raining, sometimes it's raining in Singapore, it's a little bit darker. So you have to think maybe after cut, you get a plus color, means the stone become dark.
Okay.
But when it come dark, to light it up, the best one is to heat, right? So if you, in your calculation, you put the heat stone as N heat, you maybe will get the lot, but you are in trouble.
Yeah, because you're not going to make your money back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's very tense. Actually, that's very, very tense. You need, I know that when we go in Singapore, the last 3 days, means before the auction, maybe the first 2 days is quite, you look at the stone and you go back. But when it's time to put the price on the book, tension start. And I tell you the funny thing, which is the funny thing, your energy in the nighttime is gone, means because of thinking all aspect of this piece of rough, etc. Instead of many people don't go even for dinner at nighttime the last 2-3 days because they're completely,
they're completely
too much focus.
Yeah.
Because, and then you have another problem which you get said. You go there, okay, you go there with $100,000 in your pocket, which is too small, but let's say just for figures, 100,000. You like 5 lot, okay? You like 5 lot. You bet on 5 lot. Each lot maybe is $50,000. So actually, if you get the 5 lot, it's $250,000, correct?
Yeah.
And you don't have.
So how can you get exactly what you want? Because if you don't put your maximum in every lot, maybe you will never get any lot, correct? You have big chance to get no lot. But if you get the 5 lot, you are in trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's why I said you get a lot of tension,
So
and it happened to me once that
I remember there are some
I got
people.
a few lots,
Yeah.
and I didn't have the money to pay the few lots,
Okay.
or the lot that I got. So I figure out there's always, because they're nice lots, so you can get the money, and this you can find the money. But that's the third problem, that you have to adjust exactly on your budget.
Yeah.
But because if you go out of your budget, then if you know how to get the money, then it's okay. But otherwise, you're in trouble. So that's part of the tension. Okay, so you have 3 problems.
Justine, I witnessed several end of the auction, and it was funny because sometimes, when they announce the winner, so you have this company name first time, you see the guy is happy, he gets his parcel. And then you have his name second time. Then the guy is thinking. Then you have the name third time. And then the guy is thinking, he's calculating, I get this one, I get this one, I get this one. Oh, I'm over budget. And then you have the name number 4. The guy is still smiling, but a little bit like, thinking already how I will do. I have to pay within few days because if not, I don't want to get bad. I have to find a partner now. I have to. So they are.
The thing, like we say always in Happy, we laugh because everybody know that when you get the lot, your name, everybody, tap the claim. Second one, the third one, you start to sweat,
And then they are thinking, why nobody pay higher than me? Or maybe I buy too expensive. Then they are thinking again, okay, why is the other one? I get all this one, but how come? Maybe I made a mistake. And then
it's very tough. It's not easy.
Yeah.
A lot of people got burned. They went, and you like as Vincent said, you don't see them again.
Yeah.
But
so then when you do win the lot, for you personally, when you do win the lot, are you immediately happy, or do you have to wait and see once it's cut, make sure your math was correct?
Oh, no, you get the excitement. When you're happy, you get the excitement, You want to get as quick as possible the lot and start doing the treatment or start to cutting them, and don't forget, you always have surprise. You get silk surprise, you know. There is sometimes some lot, some years that some production with a lot of silk, but sometimes you don't see the silk. With all the trick immersion, we do immersion, immersion on the liquid immersion and all the trick we do, and sometimes you can't see the silk. There is that you can't see, and it's always there. So that's a bad surprise. And sometimes you get the good surprise. The stone that you thought, you didn't pay much for it because it was a little bit dark, and you get the top C axis, the perfect C axis, and you get a screaming color, and then wow, you make money, and then you're happy.
Okay, so it can go both ways. So it's a roller coaster of emotions, really.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the fun stuff with rubies, and especially this one, is that you have double surprise. First surprise, you buy the stone, you have the rough. Then after heat treatment, you look at your stone after heat treatment, first surprise. And then you send them to the cutter, second surprise. Because if the cutter does that and that, and then it's the seven-step surprise. Seven-step surprise.
No, because
expectation and dream, expectation and surprise.
And as I said, people lose money sometimes with the size. I saw maybe I have few samples that people where they get hit is with the big size. People think, I will get the 10 carat. That's a killer, because if you don't get the 10 carat, or you can get the 10, because 10 carat, we're talking about a lot of money.
Yeah.
So if you think, for example, you're going to get $100,000 per carat for a 10 carat, which is $1 million, and then you get only a 9 or 8 carat, which is only, then will be $50,000 a carat. But some people don't forget. Sometimes the last years the margin was not so big. Sometimes people think, they're making a lot of money. No. Sometimes because there's so much competition for a nice stone, sometimes is very, very small margin.
So if you make a mistake,
I give you an example. You want this stone is going to be $1 million. Some people will pay $800,000 for the piece, or even $900,000, because they say, I will get the 10 carat and 1 million, but maybe I can want 1.2 for it. But in the end, they don't get the 10 carat, or they get a problem with the silk or on agis or whatever. And everything can happen.
Yeah.
So that's very tough.
Yeah.
Very competitive, very, very, it's tense. I saw it's tense.
So we're getting towards the end here on time, but my last question, I want to ask about the school, because obviously you're one of the board of directors, one of the founding members of IGT, which has been my passion project with you guys for the last couple of years. So I just wanted to speak a little bit about that. How did you guys get the idea to start a school of your own?
As you say, we call it is the bridge between the gemology and trade, gem trade, because every gemolog coming out of GIA, I mean most of them, as you know, coming after J course and this, you ask them what you want to do. I heard this for years, and they say, I don't know yet, but I would like to know how to cut. Most of them, as you know, our students, many come out for gemology school.
They want to do gem trade, but the difficulty
as you know, if you want to be, if you want to have perfect knowledge at what you're doing as a trader, is good. You know about your rough, and especially how about your cut, or you as we teach, recut stone. You remember we recut, that's can be a big business by buying already stone with the big window and recutting the stone, you can already make money.
Yeah.
You know,
And
so
in Bangkok, there's so many stones like that. It's an easy business, really, if you can
yeah.
resell them. There's so many bad stones.
Till today, and I'm still convinced, and it will be. I mean, we start to convince that this is a must for people who want to come to this business, because then you can even selling people. When the customer give you an order, you know what question to ask him to avoid mistakes, because you know what is cutting or what is rough. You know, not you not only sell, you can ask question to avoid, to avoid mistakes, because there is so much way of mistakes in our business, cutting stone and
Really,
etc.
any edge you can get is going to help you out. And
Exactly.
and so I'm just showing some photos from the rough course that we are running this past year
We did
before
rough
COVID.
course. We did we take the student to heat treatment. So here this is what we showed them in the morning. It
Mhm.
was not heat, and then next day they come back and they see the stone already heated, so they really can see the difference.
Yeah,
And
no,
then
good.
you are taking care of the cutting class, so you know very well.
Of course, we're having fun in that class. A lot of things to learn about rough, about how do you figure out what that finished size is going to be. Exactly what you were saying with the gem fields auction. If you can't figure out what size the stone's going to be after you cut it, then you really don't know what price you can pay because you don't know how big it's
Yeah.
going to be.
Quality of rough, quality
Yeah.
of rough, very important.
This is where your project. I'm not involved in that project, I have to say, but this is where your project is interesting, because the the funny thing about people, for example, when they see gemology and they go to study gemology, I think it's a good idea for most people who want to start the gem trade to study gemology. At least they know how to make a difference between a ruby, a sapphire, and a garnet and a spinel. So number one, you know what you buy and you know what you sell. But the thing is, with a gemological class, like you have everywhere around the world, from GA to GMA to other class to in France or things like that, it's the main market for gemologists are basically to provide people who will work as a sales in a jewelry store. So if you want to work in a lab, a gemology diploma is not exactly what you need. You need to have, if you want to work in a lab, you need to study science, to go to university, study science, and then you make a gemology diploma. It's a kind of specialization.
Mhm.
Now, if you want, like Karim, you are doing, when you come and you want to work not in a consuming country like Europe or America, but you want to work in the gem trade in some producing countries, most of the gemological degree are not adapted, because when you study gemology, you study faceted stone.
Yeah.
And when you go in the trade in Chantaburi, or when you go, in a kind of auction by Gemfi, you only see rough. So you spend 6 months studying faceted stone or learning to try to identify if the stone was heated or not. When you go at the mine, you know the stone are not heated, but they are all rough. So, and sometimes this is the first time you will see rough stone, and suddenly, oh, this is not exactly what I studied, and you have to put a value. You have to put money on the table, so you are not ready for that. And actually, this is where your school idea is great, because I think that if you want to go for a rough and you want to go also or recutting, the most important thing you have to learn after gemology is to learn how to cut.
Yeah.
Because if you learn how to cut, you can see a piece of rough and you can know what you can do and how it can be transformed. This is what I studied when I was in Burma. In Burma, in the morning I was studying gemology. In the afternoon I was studying cutting. That's in Burma. That was the normal way. You study gemology. It means you study gemology, how to identify the stone in the morning, and you study how to cut in the afternoon. But in most of the Western type of learning, you study gemology, but you don't study about cutting. And I was thinking, there is a problem with that.
Yeah.
And this is where your school is great, because it bridges the gap between gemology, like it is done everywhere and teach everywhere for consuming country, to something that can be used when you go in a field in Madagascar, in Mozambique, in a thing like that, and you see some rough where the stone are not a final product, but they are a potential. And if you have also, thanks to Karim, because you are nice enough sometimes, to take people to, like me, people to Chantaburi and to show them about heat treatment, things like that. If you can understand cutting and if you can understand heat treatment, then you can deal with rough.
Yeah.
And most of the rough buyers that I met are actually former cutters or former burners. And as you explained, Karim, and with this thing in Gemfields auction, at Gemfields auction, I got the confirmation of that. And I saw most of the best Ruby businessmen in the world. You have one guy who know about the price, one guy who know about cutting, and one guy who know about heating. And the three guys look at all the parcel and they tell their opinion on every stone. So the guy who know about how much the stone can sell, depending of this stone need to be heated, yes, no. And what will be the color, what will be the shape, what will be the size of the stone after cutting. And then he puts the number, and then he knows the margin he has to do, and then he divides, and then he knows how much he can put for this parcel, how can he can expect. And this is the key. The rough business is not about you are totally unqualified and you think, okay, let's put a number like that. No, luck is not a business plan. Maybe you win one time, maybe you win two times, but on the long run, you are going to lose. And what I saw is that people who are in the rough business, they are all very good cutters, or they have a very good understanding of cutting, or they have a very good understanding of heat treatment, or they have a very good understanding of price and market. And most of the time, as you say, Karim, there is not one guy who knows everything. You need a combination of people with market knowledge, cutting knowledge, and heat treatment knowledge, and that's called a winning team. And this is actually very complicated, very complex, because when numbers are high, there is a lot of stake. It's fascinating, it's super fascinating.
Just another thing for the school is that I really saw many years, a lot of kids, let's say kid, finishing the school, but their parents were not in the gem business. There were other business, and they didn't have a big budget, small budget, and they were passionate. And unfortunately, they came out from the gemological school. They have no knowledge at all what is a nice stone. So they have little money. The first buy they do a mistake. Yeah. And those kids disappear. You don't see them again. Many of them. And I thought that was a shame, because that's a shame, I thought many of them, some were very nice, very passionate. They couldn't make it. They go back to home and work do other job and this and that. But so
this is exactly what happened to me. This is exactly
today is even worse today, because in those days tourmaline were $30 a carat. Nice tourmaline, you can still buy a tourmaline for today. Nice stone, whatever you talk, can be Paraiba. We're talking about $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 stone. So if you really have 10,000 budget and you have not a background or rich parent or people your parent in the business, and you spend then $10,000 wrongly, that's.
My advice to everybody who want to start a play gem dealer: when you buy stone and you are unqualified, like you are going out from a gemological school and you only saw a facet stone and you want to start to play with rough, never put more money than what you can afford to lose.
Yeah, good.
Because, and this is why I survived, because I bought, when I went to study gemology in Burma, and I studied gemology in the morning, cutting in the afternoon, and then I wanted to buy some stone in order to try and things like that. I bought somewhere the wrong stone. I bought some stone. I didn't make money and I didn't lose too much. So I was able to survive. But I learned from my mistakes.
Yeah.
So as long as you lose money and you can survive with that, that's okay. So, but you have to be careful because most of the time, the difficulty with many people going out from gemological school is that they feel, overqualified. They are too much optimistic. They have the feeling that they know everything. I remember when I was studying at GAA, a GG is a G dot G dot. And when I was going every weekend in Chantaburi, and I was one of the very few people with a gemology degree in Chantaburi. And some people, professional dealers, they say, oh, gemology students they are very good people. They buy everything. They are go-go people. J dot go-go people. They don't know anything about quality. They buy everything because they think they are so good that they will never say that they don't know. They know everything and they will buy whatever. And they are perfect carriers because if you don't know the limit between what you know and you don't know, you are in a very difficult situation.
Yeah, that's true. And so that's what we're trying to hope we can help people level up a little bit with the rough and the cutting.
Knowledge is very important, and
technical knowledge is very important. And
the Thai people is different. Asian people, but especially Thai people, and I can tell you, there is few sample like that. It's completely different. They are gambler.
Mm-hmm.
So there is one time one question somebody asked me, how come I said Thai people will go to Mozambique, buy a lot, or buy a big piece, that's $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, go back to Thailand, heat it, broke it, then he lose 100,000, then he will sell the house, take the money, go back to Mozambique, and he will continue like this. That's gamblers, he will not stop. But this is the mentality, not all of them, but happen a lot.
Yeah.
They will go and go. A German or European or American, you will burn yourself one time. Maybe if you're stubborn, you will do it a second time. But maybe I'm not sure you're going to go back to the third time. Asian, maybe Chinese too. They are gamblers. So that's genetic, let's say.
Okay.
I tend to agree with you on the Thai. Thais, I think, are powerful because basically they are willing to take risk, so they are a bit gambler. The funny thing is when I compare, for example, the Thais, the Indian, and the Sri Lankan, the Indian are more industrious. They will make a company. They will not take risk. They are calculating everything. They don't take too much risk. The Indian are very industrious. The Thais are very gambler, and the Sri Lankan are halfway. So they can also take risk, but they are less gamblers than the Thai, but more gamblers than the Indian. And the Sri Lankan are kind of an interesting population of people who are half-half. Well, some Thai, the Thai and the Thai Chinese. The Thai Chinese are more like the Indians; they are more industrious. So you have it depends on one individual to another one. But yeah, the Thais and some Sri Lankan, to be a burner, to go to heat treatment, you have somewhere to be a gambler. Meaning, you need to be able to take risk, but you need to be also curious and to be searching for knowledge.
Yeah. You can, if you want to play with the stone, it's not difficult. You buy an oven, and you get some rough and you play with it. You don't have to put expensive stone inside. That's why I put cheap stone. Rejection. I was asking rejection from factories sometimes. Put them in the oven, see how it comes, and this and that, and slowly you put your mark and this and that, and that's it. That's you. You can burn, tourmalines. You can heat aquamarine.
You read books.
Yeah.
You read books. You read the book from Cornasso. You didn't just try like that.
Yeah.
You're reading book. You're curious. You're reading book, and you.
Every rough is different from every country, but you have a basic. You have a base. When you have the base, you take the base, you learn from the base, and then you try to adjust and to get better and better. That's And then at a certain moment, you start to, okay, nobody did that, or I don't think so. So you try other way, and that's are the small secret we all have, because you go out of the the highway, poof, and you turn left and try something, and it works. Wow, okay, okay. That's my secret one, So
Yeah.
that's how is it.
Well, I think that is a great place to end for tonight. Kareem, thank you
Okay.
so much for
Thank you.
giving us
Thank
the
you
time to pick your
for
brain and get some
thank you.
knowledge that we haven't known.
Thank you, Vincent. Also, thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce myself, and thank you for everybody who
Thank you for you to accept to. It's not all the time that somebody like you accept to discuss like that. And for the past 20 years, I learned a lot of things. Discussing for hours and for all our lunch and the time we spend, in your office or in front of your oven, discussing and exchanging ideas. I'm the
I
one who have to thank you, for all the information you get because thanks to you, I understand many things much better.
for
And
everybody who's listening, thank you. And I have to tell everybody that I know many people send me message on Facebook, but I'm not often in Facebook. I'm not I'm only in the oven or starting to think that in my telephone and computer. So
So
please,
you can
questions I
find
don't respond immediately, but
yeah.
uh,
I put some links up. You can find Kareem online, but don't expect a response because he's cooking.
no, you can
He's
expect response. But sometimes I'm busy, doing treatment and this and that. Not always in my computer. But if you are in Thailand, come to Thailand. You're welcome to come and visit me and
okay.
visit me. You're really welcome.
Okay. So
Thank
Vincent,
you, everybody. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Justin.
thank you,
And
Kareem.
see
And
you
so
next week, I think.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so Vincent,
yes,
next week, okay, so 17 weeks, 17 webinars we've done. Next week,
yeah,
the final episode. We got
yeah, the
everybody.
final episode because well, this series of webinar was trying to bring the people who helped me going to the field and the people who, you know, uh, I learned a lot from people like Karim, 20 years, or the people who mentor me, people like Gaston Giuliani, Jean-Claude Michelou, and things like that. But after a while, after 17 weeks, I don't have too many more people. I spend a lot of time in the field and things like that with. So I was thinking with you how to finish this series of webinar and maybe think about the future. What are we going to do basically next month? And discussing with you, Justin, we had actually you had that idea. Maybe we should do a webinar about this webinar because we were not just doing this webinar, but we were following other webinar.
Yeah.
And it seems that now everybody is a little bit like slowing down a bit. And so we had this idea to invite all the other guys like Master Rui, who started that, and then you, and then Julia Griffith from GMA, and then Michel from AIGS was the first one to invite me for a webinar, and then people from GIA represented by my old friend Nick Sturman, and then Edward Johnson from with Sibjo, and Eloise Gaillou, who is trying also to bind the mineral community, to have all these people coming in one room and speaking about their experience in the past 3 or 4 months or 5 months doing this webinar and see the challenge, what went out from that, and see with them what will be the future, what will be this, where is that going. So
Yeah.
this is what we will do next week. We'll have great fun. It will be 8 people. We'll discuss about all that, and hopefully these people will tell us a little bit what are they planning to do next month or in the next few
Yeah.
months, how they see the future.
Yeah. And
So
just how you reflect upon what has happened so far, because I know I was doing some of the math earlier today of how many webinars that we've done between just these 8 people, and it's crazy. Like it's more than 100 that we've done in the last few months. And I know we're not, these 8 are not all of the people that have done webinars. There's other groups as well, but man, there's been a lot of webinars since February. It's amazing. And Rui kind
There
of
is,
yeah.
and most of them are available on YouTube. So in this past 4 or 5 months, if you are searching for information, there is a huge amount of information that is available, but it will take days to watch all these things and to digest. And it's incredible the amount of information that went on the web within the past 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
Yeah. And
There
so
is
and
a
and
mine of
maybe
knowledge.
yeah. And so maybe I don't know when we'll announce this, but I guess probably sometime next week. Vincent, you have a new concept for a series. I've got a new concept for a series. So we've got 2 new webinars coming out later,
That for next week.
which
We
we'll
speak
speak
about
about
that
that later.
next week
But
during the next webinar. I don't want to
yeah,
speak about that before. Yeah,
yeah.
of
So
course I have an idea. I have a plan. I have all the time. I all the time have a plan.
yeah.
Sometimes I
So
have too much plans, but
yeah.
I all the
We
time have a plan.
we will continue again next week with all of the other hosts, and they can be our guests this time for once, and we'll have a good time. 8 people, maybe it will be a little crazy. We don't know. We haven't tried it yet, but we'll see.
8 very inspiring people.
Yeah,
Well, 7 of them I don't put myself in, but these 7 people inspire me, each of them on quite a lot. I was very impressed with many of them.
yeah,
Very
me
impressed.
too, me too. So it's gonna be fun, and hopefully everybody will come next week, and we'll be launching the sign up for that probably tomorrow or something. So okay, so Vincent, I will see you next week. Kareem, thank you again for the
Hello,
great
everybody.
talk,
Thank you, and
and
see you next week.
yeah, we'll see you
Okay,
around
have
next
And
week as well.
everybody who was listening, thanks a lot to have follow us for this 2 hours and a half, and for this 17 basically weeks of webinar. It was great. It was
Yeah,
great, and I hope you enjoy a lot and you learned a lot.
yeah. So okay, see you
Sawadee
guys
krap.
later.
Sawadee
Thank
krap.
Bye bye, and thanks Justine. Thanks again.